Hello. It's been a while since I've been out here in the shop. I've had a lot of just stuff going on, but I am finally back out here. I have cut the third set of pins. This is the one, if you remember, this is the one that we're working on now. Got them all laid out. The X's indicate the parts that are coming out, and that piece is going to match up. The X tells me it's going to match up to that piece there, so it's going to eventually go like that. So we're working on that. I'm not really 100% happy with how the last one came out. Somehow my line between the front of the board and the back of the board is just off by a little bit. So I'm going to be conscious of that and try to prevent it from happening. But I want to show you how we cut the pins. So we have the tails all ready to go. Now we need to cut the pins to lock them in place. Probably going to be over 2 steps because I was just doing this one. It's probably going to be a fairly lengthy process, and I think it would be just too long a video to upload and do that. So what I am going to do here, I think I started marking it on the little arrow there. I am going to stay, this is the X marks the waist. I'm going to now saw down these lines, and I'm going to stay on this side of the line, and then on this line here, I'm going to stay on this side of the line. So that way I can chisel out and really hone in to where I want to be. So we're going to readjust, get the vise in the picture. I'm going to use this handy little device. I've only had this for a little while, but I like it. Gives me much more even clamping pressure, and I'm trying to get the board to be straight up and down. You know what I guess I could do is bring that in, so that way, if my hand feels upright up and down, then I know the saw it's going to be a straight line going down. When you're cutting the pins, you want to make sure that the angle matches that of the dovetail. And if you remember when I said we were cutting the dovetails, the most important angle is this straight line 90-degree angle going across, which is going to match this 90 degrees from the edge coming down. In the pins, these angles are important because they will match. Oh, let's look at the front. They will match the top angle, so that'll prevent any gaps. And quite frankly, even if it's not perfect, this box is still going to hold together well, last hundreds and hundreds of years. It'll be an heirloom at some point. But it makes me feel better, and it looks better if it's straight. So I'm just going to grab my saw, just hanging off to the side of the bench. This is a rip saw. It's ripping. I'm going along the grain, so that's what you use a rip saw for, and I was having a little bit of trouble, so I'm just going to take this. This is it's a t-shirt really wrapped down tightly into a can of tomatoes, jalapenos. There was something in there that I cleaned out, and stuff that rag in there, and then that rag is infused with just regular 3-in-1 household oil. That just takes away friction. So like I said, I'm going to start cutting the angles here. I'm going to work across one way, going to change my body position. Maybe not the most exciting thing to watch, but what I'm going to do now is try to get as close to that line while still being on the waist side as I can. And then I have, you can see the remnants here. I have just straight lines, and we laid this out the last time we were together. These straight lines are parallel to the sides, 90 degrees to the edge, and I can see it on my side. I didn't put it on the back because when I'm sawing, I can't see the back, so I don't really focus on it. So what I'm going to do now, my saw is this way. I'm going to start dropping my hand so the saw stays in that little kerf that I just made, and I'm going to follow the line that's over here. And I got to get back into the kerf. There it goes. So with each stroke, my hand is dropping just a little bit more, this is kind of why I wanted this piece to be purposely perpendicular, so that because the saw, if it's that way, I can feel it. It's its lightest when it's like that, but if I get a little bit off, it feels different. So now, right now, I've got in that cut, if that's the top of the board, that cut now goes like this. I'm going to now put my saw back in, using the kerf to guide me to bring it down that way. So here I'm going to keep that. I'm going to just follow the same kerf, very light stroke, until I feel like I'm perpendicular just above the line that I set for the depth. I'm going to skip over the same tail because I'm already in this position with the angles going diagonally to my left. And I really need better lighting in here so I can see what I'm doing. I'm in my own way with my, my head is blocking my own light. But same thing, I'm just gonna drop my hand. Trying to use all of this saw. All right. And the closer I can get to getting it right off the saw, the easier the next step becomes. I would rather leave too much waste on there than not enough, because I can always take away. I can't put it back once it's done. All right, so I've now got 1, 2, 3 pins. I've cut on to my point of view, I've cut the right side of them. Going straight down, I'm now going to shift my whole body because I still want the saw to be in the same relative position, so that way my arm, my elbow, the saw handle, it's all in one plane. It gives me a better cut. And I'm going to adjust my body to match this. And actually this, I'm not nearly as much as my own way because this source of light, trust me, it's right there. I'm not looking through a shadow. And just light strokes. I'm feeling a little resistance, and I get through that resistance not by powering down and through it, but by kind of releasing the tension that I feel right in here, and let the saw kind of glide over. Let the saw glide over the wood until it straightens out. And I don't know if you can see, I'm using the thumb, or sometimes my forefinger of my left hand. I'm pushing, I'm like using that, taking the saw plate, and I'm using this hand to kind of push that way into my thumb. And the two opposing, opposing points of pressure keep everything straight and where I want it. I probably haven't mentioned that before. That's just a normal technique that I don't even think about, but it's something that I'm doing. It's something that I do subconsciously. And those look like they're done. Oh no. I'm a bit off my line there. I can't really see the back. So I'm just going to bring this line down just a bit closer to the line. There we go. That saw hangs off of a peg I have on the leg of the bench. I'm looking for my brush just to get rid of some of the dust. All right, so now that all those are cut, can we get a better light? So there we go. Now that all those are cut just above my line, this line is ink. I'm about to put a more permanent line in there. That's more of a guideline. If you could tell, I'm just a little bit over because when I knife it in, that's going to take up the difference. That's my top, that's my reference face. So when I put my square on here, you'll notice I keep it on that edge. So every now and again, you'll see me look at the board to make sure that I've got the right edge. So I know this piece was X. I'm going to look to see what I had marked as X. and I want this to be down that deep. So what I'm doing here, I'm kind of with my fingertips feeling, I want it to be as flush as possible. What you could do is cheat a little bit and just get it so it's just a small amount hanging over, but quite frankly, I just don't like doing that. It's flush by the time I'm finished, and finagling it's going to be a little bit tight. It's gonna compress a little bit anyway. So right there, I'm about as flush as I can get it. And in this case, this is the face of the board. I am only going to put markings where I'm going to take wood out. My first pass is very, very light. Second pass a little bit more. Third is a little bit heavier. And I'm doing that because I don't want this to move. On my hand right here, I'm putting a lot of pressure down with these fingers. My thumb, pinky, and actually the ring finger in this particular case are opposing each other. To keep everything here, I want everything to be as tight as possible. I'm going to do the same thing here, very light. That's just scoring the wood fibers, giving me a path to go in for the more deeper cut. And actually, I can come a little bit farther. There we go. And same thing here. And this is where I messed up somewhere on that last joint that I said I'm not very happy with. So I'm going to be a little bit more conscious this time. So I've got score lines going through there. That's what I'm going to do. I want the exact same score line on the opposite side. So I'm going to take the knife, run it right along the square here, make a nick in the corner, which is going to be, it gets planed out. You still may see it. Some old pieces you may notice those little knife marks and drawers and stuff. And that was so that way we could tell, or they could tell, whoever made it could tell, they had to match it to the other side. So now I'm going to put my knife back in that, slide the square up to it, and right there, put another mark in. I'm just going to double check that because, like I said, this is where I messed up last time. So yeah, that's a lot better. So if I put my knife in the mark I just made, slide the square up to it, theoretically it should be back in the same spot, and it is. So now I'm going to use that knife mark I just put in, and again, the beam of the square is going against that same reference angle. So that way, if I was a little bit out planing, that should make up for itself. So now I found the knife mark, putting the square back up to it, and just the opposite now. I'm putting a lot of pressure down here. I'm going to spread out my fingers, and I want to make sure that my finger does not overlap the edge of the square, because I don't want to cut my finger. In this case, you know what? These very ends are staying on. I don't have to worry about it, but quite frankly, this is an internal corner, so I don't have to worry too much. The internal corner is going to be hidden. But from here, I'm going to now make these a little bit stronger. That first pass just kind of scores the fibers. This is the one where you really have to be careful, because now I'm putting pressure here, can create a pivot point. So I do want to make sure that I'm not putting too much pressure with my right hand in and turning that in, so much so that I may even put even more pressure down on the beam. Okay. So now we've got a definitive depth line. Actually, you could probably see I'm just a little bit off the ink mark that I had. So we're going to come in here and start chiseling out. When I was doing the tails, that's a much narrower space that has to come out of the tails. These are much wider, so I can use a wider chisel for that, and there is a benefit to using a wide one over the narrow, and I think I may have alluded to that when we first started cutting the dovetails themselves. And it has to do with the width and the size of the blade that we're working with. The narrower one has more of a tendency to dig in because there's no resistance. The wider chisel is going to have a little bit more resistance, which is going to be less likely to then move the line and push backwards. So The narrower chisel is easier to pound through and to use, but it also has more chance for problems. So now I've given myself a little bit of an angle. I'm just kind of flicking out these waste parts, and what it's doing is it's breaking or splitting to where where the knife went. It doesn't go down any farther than that, and now it's just kind of pounding. But I am not going to go right up against that line. I'm going to look for it, but I'm going to go, I don't know, maybe that's like a 32nd, maybe a 16th, and I'm just going to give it a little tap. The weight of the mallet is doing all the work. Again, so I don't move that line. That line is very important to the whole procedure. I don't know if you heard that. I could feel it. That was a lot more solid of a strike. I'll show you why in a second. Just trying to find that because, like I said, I don't want that line to move. This oddly colored spot right here is the top of one of the legs. So the leg on this bench goes from here to here. So 1, 2, 3. If you can see the laminations, the leg is right under there. So that's why I usually use this area. But when I'm doing it, this part still solid, but doesn't have the leg going right into the concrete floor. So when I flip over, I am making sure there's no little bits on here to telegraph into the board. It can be taken out, but I don't want to have to do that if I can avoid it. And like I said, I'm just using the weight of the mallet to make this strike. I'm making sure that I am far enough away from that knife line, which is pretty hard to see in mahogany. It's the color of the wood makes it difficult. And same thing, I'm going to put it back into the vise as a safety thing. And you'll notice how it going into the vise, it's sloped, so that way the whole vise is holding that, not just the very tip, because if I put too much pressure, the bars on the bottom will go through, the top will come out. This just makes it so much more secure. And now I'm going to kind of split the wood down and relieve some pressure. And again, the wood's splitting down to the depth that the chisel went. So not terribly. We will get there, but same thing on the back side. I'm not really trying to hit the wall that's underneath there. All I'm waiting for is the wood to split, and you can see it. So now I'm going to go right into that knife line. And I'm going to try to get tight to the corner without going over it, and that's it right there. I'm not going to hit it hard, just those first couple of taps that you saw me take. I'm just kind of setting the chisel before giving it its actual strike. And I am aiming for this to be perfectly perpendicular going across. I guess theoretically, as long as the two outer edges are aligned with each other, the middle doesn't have to be there. It is more glue surface. I don't like to undercut things. Yes, it'll work. It'll look fine, but I don't think structurally it's gonna have the same integrity. And once again, I feel better if it's done properly. You will, by the time it's all finished and put together, you will never see it. Will it take years off its lifespan? Possibly. I haven't lived long enough to determine that, and nor do I want to. I just think it's a good idea. Actually, right now, if I'm not perfectly perpendicular right now, I am aiming to be, I'm going to exaggerate, like that, to create a hump in the middle that I can take out later and go down to perfectly flat. So this is kind of a wash, rinse, repeat sort of thing. It's a necessary evil. I could with the 5-minute dovetails that I'm doing back over on the side, I have been using a coping saw, which does make that whole process a little bit faster. But I think there's just more room for error. I don't like the way it comes out. The more I practice with it, the more I think I'm likely to try it again sometime in the future. But for now, this is how I prefer to do it. Whether it's the right way, the correct way is another story. Again, it's the way that I do it. So here, like the chisel marks, I don't know if this is going to be able to be seen. Let's see if we can get it in here. Like, this is not coming out because it only split to the level that the chisel went down. I mean, if I could come in here and cut that out, but it's not necessary. But we do this very specifically, so that way, without that top wood there, when I start pounding, the bevel doesn't push the whole blade back into this knife line and push it down and into the wood. That's the big purpose we do it here. And here we're going to be able to break out a bigger chisel that's going to be less likely to do that. And you'll notice, I don't know, maybe you have it, I'm not touching this outside rim. Didn't do it when I cut the tails, not doing it now. Because what I want is when I'm pounding on here and putting all that pressure on the inside cutting, I want this out here to be stable and to give it some support. So that way I don't blow out the center. Look at the angle that we have here. If I keep going straight down, I am going to hit into the respective pins. So now I'm going to take this chisel, I'm going to angle it over here. And then when I get to that side, I'm going to angle it over here to try to get a nice clean corner. So I'm putting that in there. And I can't really see it. I'm just kind of estimating where it is. We're going to do that. I'm going to come over here and do that corner. I'm going to come over here, do that corner. You'll see the pattern. And what am I think I'm using a 3/4 inch. That's a 3/4 inch chisel. I've got a full inch chisel now that I will come in. I can't really use this one on the back side because it's just not enough room. But now I'm going to come in here and go straight down. And that wider chisel is going to make it harder to move the knife line. It's going to give more resistance over the 1 inch as opposed to the 3/4 inch, preventing it from moving backwards. Which is why I didn't really want to use a 1/4 inch chisel the first time, but really had no clue. Now this one's a little bit different. I guess I could angle it the other way, but I find that awkward. So on this side, I'm just looking for there it is, for the line, and I'm going to go straight down. Again. And we're going to do it again. I'm giving this one a little bit more of a, not just the weight of the hammer, I'm giving it a little bit more of a punch. And I lost track of how many times I did this, but by looking, I believe probably going to need 2 more rounds to get this to come out. I know the video is getting a little long and tedious, which is why I want to break this process up. So once we finish with this, what's going to happen is you're going to go in and clean up the bottom of that joint, and then we're going to what we call marry it, as in dun, 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 dun. We're going to marry it to the tails that it was marked off of, marrying the joint. Again, don't want anything extra on the bench. I don't want to be hitting my hand on anything sharp. It's the wrong size. And doing it again. And as I get going, I can feel the angle that I did it the first time. And I'm just going to follow that. as best I can. That one, the one in the middle, I think is gonna pop out soon. Let's come in here. Giving it a fairly good back side. And what I don't want is to blow through. I want to cut the fibers. I don't really want to pull them out. I want to cut them out. They're getting close. I can tell by the sound and the way it feels when I hit it. So I believe this will be the last time. Just taking out a little bit more top wood, giving the bevel a place to go. Let's get some of that out of there. There we go. Each time I do this, my angle of attack gets a little bit steeper. I guess I could come back a little bit farther, but like I said, I want that rim of wood to stay right along the top there. And I'm going to intentionally, because I think this is going to be all it takes. The next round is going to get these pieces to pop out. So I'm going to go from the back, because I'm fairly certain the first shot isn't going to go through. I'm not going to hit it terribly hard, but I'm going to start cutting that. That one's going to pop out any second. So is this one, and that one did pop out. What I want to try to avoid. I do want to get it to come through from the other side, and that's actually not bad. That's a very clean cut, kind of what I'm looking for. What I don't want is I don't want it to look like somebody taking your tooth out by the root. So I'm going to get rid of those corners, and I'm just going to stick with the chisel I have in my hand. There we go. That one that looks good. I'm trying to look for an example of one that's not done well, but I don't really want to show you that. If I can avoid it, I saw that piece split when it came out, and those look really good. Right here, though, can you see this? This piece is on there solidly. That means that when I attacked it and went in with an angle, I missed that piece. So my next step, I'm not going to do this to camera right now because we're already looking at about a half-an-hour video. I am going to clean up these bottoms. I am going to make sure that it's square going across. And right now I can already tell you that this is a lot better than the first one that I did. Going to clean out the bottoms, and I will show to camera the fitting process, because this is going to have to fit into here, and like right now you can tell that's not going. So that's cutting the pins. We'll clean that up, and we'll show you what we do next.